Good afternoon. Previous session we learned about how the Delhi sultans they were expanded, especially from garrison towns to empire they were developed. And in this class, dear students, we are going to learn about the administration and consolidation under the colleges and turbulence. So please keep it in your mind. So today's class we are going to learn about administration and consolidation, administration and consolidation under the causes and under the causes and togetherness. See, the consolidation of a kingdom as vast as the Delhi Sultanate needed reliable governors and administrators. Because actually, in our subcontinent, the Delhi Sultanates and their kingdom, so it was actually a vast one. It was a vast dynasty and kingdom. So here, the Delhi Sultanate needed reliable governors and the administrators to govern, to maintain the administration in this vast kingdom, rather than appointing aristocrats and landed chieftains as governors. Understood now? Rather than appointing aristocrats and landed chieftains as governors, the early Delhi Sultans, especially Iltmas, favored their special slaves purchased for military service. See here, Iltmas was a favored their special slaves purchased for military service. Those were called as Bandagan or Bandagan. So in Persian language. So there they were purchased their special slaves for what purpose now? For military purpose, for military service. And those were called as Bandagan, that is in Persian language. They were carefully trained, these Bandagan, understood them. So they were, those special slaves, they were well trained, understood now. So, and some of the most important political offices in the kingdom, they were carefully trying to man some of the most important political offices in the kingdom. That means, after train, they were appointed as in the well position. Those were the special slaves. They were appointed in the different political offices in the kingdom by the king, by the sultanate. Since they were totally dependent upon their masters. Anyhow, even though the Bandagan or those who are special trained and those who are appointed for important political offices by Sultan, So they were totally dependent upon their rulers, I mean upon their master, those who were appointed, for example, the Sultan. See here, the Sultan could trust and rely upon them. It's very much require and necessity also. Because the Sultan he was believed and trusted those the trained slaves, and then only the Sultan appointed those bandagan or trained slaves for the different political offices in the kingdom. See, the Khaljis, then keep it in your mind again. I would like to remember Khalji or Khiljis. So the same. Okay, don't get confusion. Khaljis or Khiljis. And here the Khaljis and Tughlaqs continued to use Bandagan. That means a purchased special slave. Bandagan means purchased special slaves, and these slaves were trained by the Sultan, and they were appointed to the important political offices in the kingdom. Understood now? So here the Khaljis, and actually this culture it was begun in the Turkish rulers by the Iltamash. And the Khaljis and Tughlaqs, so they were continued to use this bandagan and also raised people of humble birth. Raised people of humble birth who were often their clients. Who were often their clients. Clients means someone who is under the protection of another. For here in this chapter, in this text, it's referred as someone who is under the protection of another, a dependent or hanger on. Dependent, the clients. So here, who were often their clients to high political positions, and they were appointed as generals and governors. So those who are appointed these clients, even during the Khaljis and Tughlaq, while they were continued, while they were appointed to high political positions, so they were appointed as generals and governors. However, this also introduced an element of political instability. So because of this, what happened now? Actually, this also introduced an element of political instability in the kingdom. Slaves and clients, they were loyal to their masters and patrons, of course, because they were appointed by the masters of their masters. So that's what the slaves and clients, they were loyal to their masters and their patrons, but not to their higher, not to their hires. ಅವ್ರ ಮಾಸ್ಟರ್ ಅಷ್ಟೇ ಅವರು ಲಾಯಲ್ ಆಗಿರ್ತಾರೆ, ಬಟ್ ನಾಟ್ ಟು ದೇರ್ ಹೈಯರ್ಸ್. ಅವ್ರಿಗೆ ಯಾರು ಬಾಡಿಗೆ ಕೊಡ್ತಾ ಇರ್ತಾರೆ ಯಾರು ಅವ್ರಿಗಲ್ಲ. ಸಿ ನ್ಯೂ ಸುಲ್ತಾನ್ಸ್ ಹ್ಯಾಡ್ ದೇರ್ own servants. The new sultans they were had their own servants. As a result, the accession of a new monarch often saw conflict between the old and the new nobility. Now, what happened? No. So here, actually, the slaves and clients they were loyal to their masters and patrons, but not to their hire. So the new sultans they had their own servants. Now, as a result, what happened now? The accession of a new monarch often saw conflict between the old and new nobility. The old versus new nobility. The patronage of these humble people by the Delhi Sultans also shocked many elites and the authors of Persian Tawarik. The authors of Persian Tawarik criticized Delhi sultans for appointing the low and base born to high offices. So please keep in your mind. Now what happened now? The patronage of these humble people by the Delhi sultans also shocked many elites, many upper class, many nobilities, and the authors of Persian, Tawarik. So they were also criticized the Delhi sultans for appointing the low and base born, low base, especially to appointing to high offices. So ಉನ್ನತ ಅಧಿಕಾರಗಳನ್ನು ಅವ್ರಿಗೆ ಕೊಡ್ಲಿಕ್ಕೆ ಲೋ ಬೇಸ್ ಬಾರ್ನ್ ಇರ್ತಕ್ಕಂಥವ್ರಿಗೆ ಸೊ ಇವನ್ ಸೊ ಆಥರ್ಸ್ ಆಫ್ ಪರ್ಸಿಯನ್ ತವರಿಕ್ ಅವರು ಸಹ ಡೆಲ್ಲಿ ಸುಲ್ತಾನರನ್ನ ವಿರೋಧಿಸ್ತಾರೆ ಮಕ್ಕಳ. ನಾವು ದೇರ್ ವಿ ಕ್ಯಾನ್ ಅಬ್ಸರ್ವ್ ದಟ್ ಸೊ there were the different conflicts between old and new nobility. So that's what happened now. So this introduced an element of political instability. Understood now? See, like the earlier sultans, the Khaljis and Tughlaqs monarchs appointed military commanders as governors of territories of varying sizes. So, like earlier sultans, the Khaljis and Tughlaq monarchs, so they were also appointed military commanders. They were appointed military commanders as governors of territories of varying sizes. So, ಬೇರೆ ಬೇರೆ ಪ್ರಾಂತ್ಯಗಳಿಗೆ ಸೊ ಬೇರೆ ಬೇರೆ ಒಂದು ತಮ್ಮ ಸಾಮ್ರಾಜ್ಯದ ಆ ಒಂದು ಏರಿಯಾಗಳಿಗೆ ಪ್ರಾಂತ್ಯಗಳಿಗೆ ಅವ್ರು ಏನ್ ಮಾಡ್ತಾರೆ ಅಂತ ಅದರ ಪ್ರದೇಶಗಳಿಗೆ ಮಿಲಿಟರಿ ಕಮಾಂಡರ್ಸ್ಗಳನ್ನ ಸೊ ಗವರ್ನರ್ ಅಂತೇಳಿ ಅಪಾಯಿಂಟ್ ಮಾಡ್ತಾರೆ. So the governors are, the monarch appointed the military commanders as governors of territories of varying sizes. So these lands were called Ikta. ಸೊ ಯಾವ ಒಂದು ಪ್ರದೇಶಗಳಿಗೆ ಆ ಗವರ್ನರ್ಸ್ ಅನ್ನ ಅಪಾಯಿಂಟ್ ಮಾಡಿರ್ತಾರಲ್ಲ ಆ ಒಂದು ಪ್ರದೇಶಗಳನ್ನ ಏನಂತ ಕರೀತಾರೆ ಅಂದ್ರೆ ಇಕ್ತಾ. ಸೊ ದ ರೀಜಿಯನ್ or the territories which are headed by the governors. Understood now? So who are those governors? So actually those governors are military commanders. So here these lands were called Ikta and their holder was called Iqtadar. So ಲ್ಯಾಂಡ್ ಹೋಲ್ಡ್ ಯಾರು ಇರ್ತದಿಲ್ಲ ಅವ್ರನ್ನ ಇಕ್ತದಾರ್ ಅಂತ ಕರೀತಾರೆ. ದ ಲ್ಯಾಂಡ್ ಹೋಲ್ಡರ್ ಇಸ್ ಕಾಲ್ಡ್ ಇಕ್ತದಾರ್. ಓಕೆ, ಅಂಡ್ ಆಲ್ಸೋ ಕಾಲ್ಡ್ ಆಸ್ ಮಕ್ತಿ. ದ ಇಕ್ತದಾರ್ ದೇ ಆರ್ ಆಲ್ಸೋ ಕಾಲ್ಡ್ ಆಸ್ ಮಕ್ತಿ, means land holder, iqtadar or makti. Understood now? See dear students, so here a very much interesting thing that is about the duty of the maktis. The duty of the maktis or iqtadar. ಏನಿರ್ಬೋದು ಮಕ್ಕಳು ಅವ್ರದ್ದು ಡ್ಯೂಟಿ? That was to lead military campaigns and maintain law and order in their iqtas. So, what were the main responsibility of these iqtadars and muktis? Iqtadars or muktis? The same. So, the main responsibility, so that is, what was the main responsibility of the iqtadars and muktis? So, here, the duty of the mukti or iqtadar was to lead military campaigns and maintain law and order in their iqtas, in their land. See, in exchange of for their military services, the Bhaktis collected the revenues of their assignments as salary. Getting now? So, the Bhaktis, they were collected the revenues of their assignments as a salary. They used to collect this revenue and that only their salary. So they also paid their soldiers from these revenues. And also whatever they were maintained the army. The army soldiers also paid by these maktis. ಸೊ ಆ ಮಕ್ತೀಸ್ಗಳು ಅಥವಾ ಇಕ್ತಾದಾರ್ಗಳು ಸೊ ತಾವು ಅಪಾಯಿಂಟ್ಮೆಂಟ್ ಮಾಡ್ಕೊಂಡಿದ್ದಂತ ಆ ಸೋಲ್ಜರ್ಗಳಿಗೂ ಸಹ ಆ ಕಲೆಕ್ಟೆಡ್ ರೆವಿನ್ಯೂ ಇಂದಲೇ ಅವರ ಸ್ಯಾಲರಿಯನ್ನ ಕೊಡ್ತಾ ಇರ್ತಾರೆ. ಸೊ ಕಂಟ್ರೋಲ್ ಓವರ್ ಮಕ್ತೀಸ್ ವಾಸ್ most effective if their office was not inheritable and if they were assigned iktas for a short period of time before being shifted. Getting now? So, control over Makti was most effective if their office was not inheritable and if they were assigned iktas for a short period of time before being shifted. So, they used to follow this. See, these harsh conditions of service were rigorously imposed during the reigns of Alauddin Khilji and Muhammad Tughlaq. So, these harsh conditions of their service were rigorously imposed during the reigns of Alauddin Khilji and Muhammad Tughlaq. Accountants were appointed by the state to check the amount of the revenue collected by the Maktis. What they were did now? So they were appointed accountants. For what purpose? So the government or the Sultan appointed the accountant for what purpose? To check the amount of revenue collected by the Muktis or Iqtidar. Understood now? And care was taken that the Makti collected only the taxes prescribed by state and that he kept the required number of soldiers. So, ಈ ಒಂದು ವಿಚಾರಗಳ ಬಗ್ಗೆ ವಿಶೇಷವಾಗಿ ಅವರು ಕೇರ್ ಅನ್ನು ತಗೊಳ್ತಾರೆ, ಗಮನವನ್ನು ಕೊಡ್ತಾರೆ. As the Delhi Sultans brought the hinterland of the cities under their control, they forced the landed chieftains. Getting now? As the Delhi Sultans brought the hinterland of the cities under their control, they forced the landed chieftains. The landed chieftains, such as the Samantas, aristocrats, and rich landlords, to accept their authority. They were forced to accept their authority, especially the Samanta aristocrats and the rich landlords. Under Alauddin Khilji, the state brought the assessment and collection of land revenue under its own control. So Alauddin Khilji, he was taken the control regarding the collection of revenue and even so the assessment of the revenue also. So under Alauddin Khilji, the state brought the assessment and collection of land revenue under its own control only. The rights of local chieftains to levy taxes were cancelled and they were also forced to pay taxes. Even the chieftains also, the Samanta aristocrats also. So whatever they were levy the taxes that were completely cancelled and even they were also forced to pay taxes. The Samantas and the chieftains. So they were also, instead of levying tax, even that was completely cancelled and they were also forced to pay taxes. The Sultan's administrators measured the land and kept careful accounts. The Sultan, already we all knows that he was appointed the accounts and here the Sultan's administrators, so they were measured the land and kept careful accounts in a proper manner. Some of the world chieftains and landlords served the Sultanate as revenue collectors and assessors. Here, some of the landlords and world chieftains, so they were served the Sultanate as revenue collectors and assessors. There were three types of taxes. There were three types of taxes. The first one on cultivation, that's called Karaj. Understood? The first one is called Karaj. So it is actually this Karaj. It is on cultivation and amounting to about 50% of peasants' produce. Understood now? So whatever the peasants they were producers, so the 50% of the produces that should be given as a Karaj, whatever they were grown. So they were forced to pay about 50% of the tax or revenue in the name of Karaj. This is the first one. And the second one on cattle. On cattle also they were fixed the revenue. And the third one on houses. So they used to pay house tax also, cattle tax also, and even so they were forced to pay on cultivation, which was called as kharas, and amounting to that is about 50% of the peasants' produce. Whatever they were produced, the 50% of the produces, so that should be paid as a kharas. Understood now? So there were three types of tax were introduced during this time, such as on cultivation, on houses, and even on cattle also. See, dear students, it is important to remember that large parts of the subcontinent remained outside the control of the Delhi Sultans. Then don't think whether the Delhi Sultans, whether they were controlled the entire subcontinent. No. So, the large parts of the subcontinent remained outside the control of the Delhi Sultans. So, it was difficult to control distant provinces because it's too difficult. So, from the capital city of Delhi, whichever the regions under the control of the Delhi Sultans, which were so far, it's too difficult to control. For example, Bengal from Delhi, and soon after annexing southern India also. They were covered southern India also. But covering the administration from the capital of the Delhi, including southern part of the subcontinent, it's too difficult task. And the entire region became independent. So even in the Gangetic plain, there were forested areas that Sultanate forced could not penetrate. The Sultanate forces could not penetrate even in the Gangetic forest area also. And local chieftains established their rule in these regions. Local chieftains, so they were established their rule in these regions, and then sometimes rulers like Alauddin Khilji and Muhammad Tughlaq could force their control in these areas, but only for a short duration. Even like Alauddin Khilji and Muhammad Tughlaq, so they were forced their control on these areas, but they were not successfully. So it's for a short duration. Getting to students. So it is for only the short duration. See, the Mongols under Genghis Khan invaded Transcaucasia in the northeast Iran in 1219, and the Delhi Sultanate faced their onslaught soon after. Mongol attacks on the Delhi Sultanate increased during the reign of Alauddin Khilji and in the early years of Muhammad Tughlaq. So this forced the two rulers to mobilize a large standing army in Delhi, which posed a huge administrative challenge also. So regarding this, we are going to discuss in the next class. Thank you. Have a nice day.